I didn't even close the car door all the way. The slam echoed louder than I meant it to, the cold metal bounce of it vibrating up my spine. There were still pink balloons tied to the railing. One had deflated halfway and sagged like it knew. Something was off. I stepped over a curled streamer as I dragged my bag across the cracked walkway. They knew I was coming home. They knew what had happened. I told them. Or maybe I whispered it, over the phone, between sobs and nausea and numbness. Maybe they weren't listening. Or maybe they heard me and decided not to let my sadness mess with the party plans. The front door creaked open before I could knock. My mother stood there in a pale pink blouse, holding an empty plastic punch cup. "Oh," she said, startled. "You made it." Her words had no weight, no hug, no pause to look at my face. I looked past her shoulder into the living room. Streamers, soft pastel balloons, a stack of unwrapped gifts. The dining table was still crowded with used paper plates, half-eaten cupcakes, a cake that read, "Welcome, Baby Everly," in cursive pink icing. I hadn't met Everly yet. Everly hadn't been born. But Everly was real to them. Celebrated. Mine hadn't even been a name. "Is she still here?" I asked, setting my bag down too carefully by the door. I didn't want to drag dirt in. "She just left. You missed her by 20 minutes. My mother smiled faintly. "But you'll see her again. She's glowing." I nodded once. My mouth was dry. "I didn't know it would be today," I murmured. "The shower." Her smile faltered. "Well, your sister needed a pick-me-up. We figured, since everything's been so heavy. Heavy. That's the word they used. Not loss, not death, not grief, just weight. Something they needed to shake off." I stepped inside, the scent of buttercream and vanilla still thick in the air. My fingers brushed the edge of a gift bag. Pink tissue paper crinkled under my touch like it flinched. There were no flowers for me. No soft voices or candles or casseroles. No one came to sit beside me that day. They let me drive home into the echo of a party thrown in the exact shape of what I lost. And no one thought that might break me a little. Or maybe they did. And that's why they didn't wait. The guest list was taped to the fridge. I saw it when I went to get water. A crinkled sheet of printer paper, corners curling, held in place by a magnet shaped like a teacup. My name wasn't on it. Not even crossed out. Not even a maybe. I stood there with the refrigerator light washing over my face. The hum in my ears louder than the silence in the house. 22 names. 3 plus 1s. A hand-drawn heart beside. Kelsey's. And mine. Just gone. They always said I wasn't the baby person. Like that explained everything. When Kelsey and I were younger, I used to line up all the dolls for her tea parties. I made the voices. I told the stories. She always got bored first, always walked away. But somehow now she was the maternal one, the golden one, the one who was ready. I was too quiet, too analytical, too unsure. So when the ultrasound turned silent, when the doctor couldn't find the flicker anymore, I didn't scream. I just stared. I called Mom from the hospital parking lot. I remember the sun was setting behind the Walgreens across the street. I remember she answered on speakerphone and was laughing with someone in the background. I told her I lost the baby. She paused for a moment, then said, "Oh, sweetheart. That's awful. I'll call you right back, okay?" She never did. I stood. in front of the fridge long enough for the door alarm to beep. I shut it gently. My cup of water was still empty. The spare room was cold. Colder than I remembered. They'd taken down my old posters and painted over the walls. Beige now. Safe. The bed was made with stiff sheets and a throw pillow that said grateful. I sat on the edge of the mattress, running my fingers along the embroidery. I didn't feel grateful. I felt translucent. Like the kind of person you forget to mention when people ask how many kids you have. I heard a burst of laughter from downstairs. Dad's voice. And someone else's. I didn't go to greet them. I didn't want to explain why I wasn't smiling. The truth is, there's nothing to hold on to when you lose something you never got to hold. There's no funeral, no framed photo, no service, no closure. Just a quiet retreat into smaller and smaller silences. That night, I lay in the cold guest bed and stared at the ceiling. The shadows danced from the hall light, still on outside the door. I wasn't even angry, just erased. The next morning, I opened the closet in the guest room. Half the hangers were empty. The other half held dresses that weren't mine. Floral blouses. A white coat with gold buttons. Something sheer with lace sleeves I remember her wearing last Easter Kelsey's. This wasn't my room anymore. It hadn't been in years. But there was something so sharp about the fact that she had space. Here still, space for her things, her baby gifts, her plans. And me, I was a visitor. A guest in the house I used to come home to. I reached up to the top shelf and felt around for the old shoebox I once kept letters in. The ones from college, from friends I don't talk to anymore, from the boy I almost married. The box was gone. So was I think. Downstairs, the kitchen smelled like reheated quiche. I stood in the doorway, silent, just watching them. Mom was stirring her coffee with a cinnamon stick. Dad was scrolling on his iPad. There were still cupcake wrappers on the counter. Neither of them looked up. Not until I cleared my throat. "Oh, good morning," Mom said, like she'd forgotten I came home. Dad nodded toward the chair at the end of the table. "Hungry? There's leftovers." "Thanks," I murmured, but didn't move. They chatted about the baby shower. How cute the diaper cake was. How happy Kelsey looked when she opened the hand-knitted blanket from Aunt Clara. She really needed that, Mom said, pouring more coffee. After everything she's been through this year. I didn't ask what everything meant. I didn't want to know what counted for hardship in her life compared to mine. Instead, I stared at the centerpiece on the table, a vase of baby's breath. I almost laughed. The irony. "Did she tell you?" I asked quietly. Mom looked up, puzzled. "Who?" "Kelsey. About me." They exchanged a glance. Dad sipped his coffee. "We know you've been going through some things," she said carefully, like the words were breakable. "But we didn't want to bring it up during the celebration. Of course, celebration first. Grief later. Or never." I sat down slowly. The chair was cold. "I lost a baby," I said plainly. "And you threw a party." The words just sat there. No one picked them up. Dad finally cleared his throat. "Well, life doesn't stop. Not for everything. You know that." I nodded. "Yes, I know that now." Later, I found my old photo album tucked beneath the coffee table, the one I made in high school. The one where all the corners were taped, and I used glitter pens to caption the pages. There were baby pictures of me and Kelsey on the first page. Me holding her, grinning, her crying. The next page, only her, and the next. And the next. I flipped through slowly. My presence faded the further the album went. By middle school, I was gone entirely. It wasn't intentional, but it was revealing. That's how things were in this house. Love wasn't withdrawn, it just rerouted. And I stopped asking for it somewhere along the way. That night, I couldn't sleep. The house creaked in all the places I remembered. The hallway vent still rattled when the heater kicked on. The fridge hummed every half hour. But none of the sounds felt comforting. They felt like ghosts of a home that didn't save a place for me. I lay on my back, phone in hand, scrolling through old texts. There was one from Kelsey, 3 months ago. "You'll understand when you have your own." I never replied. She didn't know I was pregnant when she sent it. She never asked if I ever wanted to be. I opened our family group chat. The last message I sent had 2 hearts. I had texted a blurry sonogram photo. I hadn't said much, just, "It's early still, but looks like it's happening." No one responded. No congrats. No, how far along. Not even a thumbs up. And now, 3 months later, the thread was full of pink emojis, cake gifts, and baby name debates. I scrolled faster. They had picked shower dates, game ideas, themes, even a group order for matching floral dresses. My name wasn't tagged once. The next morning, I stood by the window with a mug of untouched tea, watching the neighbor rake leaves into neat orange piles. Mom walked in, adjusting the sleeve of her cardigan. "Kelsey and David are coming by to pick up the rest of the gifts. You'll get to see her today." I didn't respond. I just watched the wind scatter a few leaves back across the driveway, undoing the order the neighbor had just made. "She's so excited," Mom continued. "She's really grown into herself lately. You know, maternal." That word again, maternal, like it was a badge Kelsey got handed while mine was revoked. "She told me she felt guilty," Mom added, "but I told her not to. Life gives and takes, you know." I turned around. "What did it give me?" She blinked. "Sorry?" "You said life gives and takes. What did it give me?" A pause. Too long. Mom looked down at the tea in my hand. "You're strong," she said carefully, as if that were a gift and not a consolation prize. "You've always been the strong one." There it was, the sentence that erases the need for comfort, the kind of compliment that absolves people from asking if you're okay. When Kelsey arrived, I heard her laugh before I saw her. She came in with soft curls and glossy lips, and a hand resting proudly on her stomach. "Oh my God, I didn't know. You were here," she beamed, like it was a surprise visit. I hugged her. I don't know why. It felt automatic, like the kind of thing you do even when you're hollow inside. "You look great," I said. She did. She always did. We sat for a while, making small talk over leftover cake. She never asked about me, never said she was sorry, never mentioned the message I sent, never asked how I'd been sleeping or if I'd been eating. But she talked about her cravings, the nursery theme, how she cried when she felt the first kick. I nodded in all the right places, smiled on cue, because if grief has taught me anything, it's how to disappear while still being seen. The guest room smelled like lavender, detergent, not the kind we used growing up. A new scent, for new people. On the bed was a folded pile of laundry, delicate things in soft pinks and creams, waiting to be packed away. Baby onesies, a knitted bonnet, a plush blanket with tiny stars stitched. In the corner, Kelsey must have left them behind after the shower. I sat down beside the pile and ran my fingers across the blanket. It was soft. Cashmere, maybe. One of the more expensive registry gifts. There was a tiny note pinned to it. From Aunt Clara, with all the love in the world. Aunt Clara. She used to braid my hair when I was little. She once promised to sew me a quilt for college. It never came. But this blanket did. For someone who hasn't arrived yet. I folded it gently, carefully, the way no one had folded me. That afternoon, I told Mom I was heading into town. "Do you need the car?" she asked. "No. I'll walk." I needed air. I walked past the same oak trees I used to ride my bike under, past the same mailbox with the hand-painted sunflowers. But the town had shifted. Or maybe I had. Even the cafe looked different. Sharper. Like it had grown up while I stayed stuck. I sat in the back booth, the one near the window. I didn't order anything, just watched people come and go. Mothers with strollers, kids in Halloween costumes still clinging to October. An older man, holding a bouquet he looked too nervous to deliver, and I thought, this could have been my world too. But it wasn't. And the longer I sat there, the more I realized I didn't need to keep chasing a place in theirs. I went into the bookstore across the street, bought myself a journal with a cracked leather cover. The kind of thing that felt like it held space. Quiet space. My space. I wrote one line that night before bed. They didn't forget me. They just remembered her louder. No one noticed that I skipped dinner. No one checked the guest room. No one asked if I needed anything. But that was okay. For once, I didn't need anything from them, either. Not this time. Not anymore. The next morning, I left before anyone woke. Up, no note. No goodbye. Just the sound of the front door clicking shut behind me like a breath held too long. I walked again, past the cul-de-sac, past the same yard where Kelsey broke her arm when she was 7 and everyone rushed out of the house like she was the only thing that mattered. I was there too. I was the one who carried her in. But no one remembered that part. At the train station, I sat on the bench near the edge of the platform and watched the morning fog slide across the tracks like it had somewhere more important to be. There was a quiet ache behind my ribs. Not grief exactly. Not anymore. Something else, like space, like a shelf being cleared. I took the journal out of my bag and wrote, I don't want to be chosen anymore. I just want to be free. I tore the page out, folded it, slipped it into the envelope that once held the ultrasound photo I never showed anyone. I left it behind in the station locker. Maybe someone will find it someday. Maybe they'll understand. By the time I got back to my apartment, the city had sunk into early evening. That burnt orange kind of light that makes everything look nostalgic. I unlocked the door, stepped inside, and didn't turn the lights on. It was quiet, empty, but it was mine. The windows fogged a little from the cold. I pressed my palm against the glass and watched the imprint fade. There was a message from Mom on my phone. Did you leave already? Kelsey was hoping to say goodbye. I didn't respond. Instead, I went to the kitchen and opened the drawer where I kept my ultrasound photo. I unfolded it. looked at it for a long time. Then I lit a small candle. I placed the photo beneath the flame until it curled and browned at the edges. I didn't cry. Not out of cruelty, not even out of strength. Just because I was done holding space for something no one else had made room for. In the silence that followed, I finally felt the shape of myself again. Not as a sister, not as a daughter, not as a vessel for what could have been, just me. And it was enough. The voicemail came in while I was washing dishes. Water running. Soap soft between my fingers. The plate in my hand chipped slightly on the rim, a flaw I never bothered to fix. Kelsey's voice buzzed through the speaker, slightly too bright, as if she didn't know how to speak gently, or maybe didn't care to. "Hey, so Mom said you left kind of suddenly. I hope you're okay. I guess we didn't get a proper goodbye. Anyway, we're doing a family dinner next Sunday. Just something small. You should come." She paused. I heard a baby giggle in the background. Then, her voice again. Lighter. "I think you'd feel better if you spent more time around her. It really helps, you know? Like, being around new life. It puts things in perspective. New life. That's what they had now. A new reason to forget. Let the voicemail sit, unplayed in full. The next morning, I opened the family group chat. Photos everywhere. Kelsey, radiant in a new knit cardigan, her hand cupping her belly like a trophy. Mom grinning beside her, holding a diaper cake shaped like a lamb. Dad barbecuing, in the backyard under strings of pastel bunting. Caption, "What a blessing this little girl already is." There were no pictures of me in that thread. No trace I'd been there. But I had. I'd swept confetti off the porch. I'd folded the blanket. I'd smiled through iced punch and invisible grief. And they still edited me out. So I scrolled all the way back. To the ultrasound photo. The one I sent. The one no one answered. Then, with a breath held soft and steady, I pressed and held my name in the group chat. Leave group. Are you sure? Yes. Later that day, I boxed up a few things. Tiny socks. Unused prenatal vitamins. A set of maternity leggings I never wore because I never really showed. I wrapped them gently, placed them in a brown cardboard box, sealed it shut with tape that hissed as it unrolled. I didn't label it, didn't donate it, didn't even toss. It just stored it in the hall closet behind the winter coats, a quiet archive, not of shame, but of something I survived. That evening, Mom called, twice, then again. I let the calls ring out. I watched the screen flash and fade, and for the first time in weeks, I didn't feel guilty. I felt still, not triumphant, not healed, just still enough to breathe without bracing for their silence. The first invitation came by mail, cream cardstock, gold trim. The return address was in Mom's handwriting, still neat, still tilted slightly right. Inside, Christmas, Eve dinner, 6 p.m., home, bring a dish, wear red. There was a note at the bottom, scribbled in ballpoint. Kelsey wants to show you the nursery. It's so beautiful, and she's been asking about you. I ran my thumb over the ink, the pressure of it, the indentation. It was the most personal thing they'd sent me in years, but even that felt like obligation dressed in sentiment. I left the envelope on the windowsill. A few days later, Mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Then Kelsey texted, "You haven't seen the baby yet. You'll love her. She looks like you did." The words should have warmed me, but they didn't. They made me feel like a placeholder, a resemblance, a comparison. Not a person. On Christmas Eve, I bought myself dinner from the corner Thai place. I lit a single candle. I ate in silence with no one interrupting, no one talking over me, no one forgetting I was there. The sky outside was velvet dark, the world muffled by snow that had started falling sometime around 6. I didn't wear red. I didn't bring a dish. I didn't go, and for the first time, I didn't feel like I was missing anything. Later that night, I pulled the box from the back of the closet. I didn't open it. I just held it. Not like something I needed to revisit, but something I'd finally let be still. I wrote one last line in the journal. They moved on without me. I moved on without asking why. I don't know if they ever noticed I was gone. Not really, but that's not the part that matters. The part that matters is I stopped showing up just to prove I still belonged. I stopped handing out pieces of myself like RSVP cards, waiting for someone to check, "Yes, we see you." This was yes. My quiet revenge, absence. Not to punish, but to protect, and peace. Not because they gave it, but because I finally stopped asking for it.